Hello adventurers, my name is Chance and welcome to my spellbook. Today we're going to be going over the second entry in our half-elf subrace series, and we're going to be covering one of the more popular half-elf choices, the Drow Half Elf. This entry was first introduced in the Sword Coast Adventures Guide, and quickly thereafter became one of the more prominent choices for those edgelordy players, being able to take advantage of the cultural amalgamation of the half-elf, while at the same time having the edgy vibe and spellcasting abilities of the drow. Really a cool combination. There is still a little bit of dispute between which choice is truly better between the full drow and the drow half-elf. However, with that being said, of course, it really does come down to setting and your dungeon master's view on each of the subraces respectively. If you'd like to check out the full playlist with all of the races, or if you're just curious about all of the half-elves, please check out the respective playlists by clicking on that little eye icon up above, or instead waiting until the end of the video and clicking on the relevant end card. We also have a cool little project going on right now, and I'll talk about that a little bit more at the end of the video, but just make sure you stay tuned for that. With that out of the way, let's now take a look at their special trait. This is called Drow Magic, and much like a lot of the other half-elf traits, at least for the subraces, this does come at the cost of your versatility trait, so whether or not it's worth it to you, it's worth sitting down and really thinking about it. The Drow Magic gives you a couple spells you can use. It is worth noting, of course, that these are not magic spells in the traditional sense. They are instead considered to be traits, so just make sure you know the difference, because various things like dispel magic will affect them differently, so have that conversation with your dungeon master fairly early on, just in case they need a quick refresher. In terms of specifics, you know the Dancing Lights cantrip. When you reach 3rd level, you can cast the Faerie Fire spell with this trait, and regain the ability to do so when you finish a long rest. And when you reach 5th level, you can cast the Darkness spell once with this trait, and regain the ability to do so when you finish a long rest. Charisma is your spellcasting ability modifier for these spells. Overall, this is quite similar to the Drow subrace for the elf, and it makes sense because you are, of course, half drow. There is, of course, some discussion to be had for the viability of these spells. Dancing Lights is okay for what it is. It provides a great opportunity to serve as distractions, light paths that other people may not be able to see, or, have some cool downtime activities, or if you're a bard, you can incorporate it into your routines, so forth and so forth. That has its uses. The thing is you already have dark vision just for being a half-elf, so the amount of usage you're going to getting out of it, it's going to vary based off of circumstances quite a bit. Faerie Fire, on the other hand, is universally considered to be one of the best spells in the game, and considering you can just cast it at 3rd level, albeit once per day, it's quite handy. If you're not familiar with Faerie Fire, it essentially gives you advantage on attack rolls and reveals invisible enemies, things of that nature. It's a great spell. We have a full video on it if you want to check it out, but it is quite well done, and it gets its fair share of usage in 5th edition, and in really every edition it's been a part of, to be quite fair. But in any case, Darkness is another one of those spells where it's quite circumstantial. I've heard stories of it being used incredibly effectively, but depending on circumstances, it could serve as a bane as well. So, overall, it's a mixed bag, but whatever goes with your character, and they do kind of fit that edgelordy persona quite well, so take it with a grain of salt. Now let's move on to my personal thoughts. Apart from my criticism of its spell choices, I'm actually a pretty huge fan of the Drow Half Elf overall. I think a lot of players have a lot of fun with them, and at the end of the day that's all that really matters. But even more of a nitty-gritty thing is that, depending on how your world is set up, this half-elf can act as a huge boon to the dungeon master, giving them certain roleplay opportunities, or maybe even crafting the world around the relationship between humans and drows. it could lead to some really interesting character development and might lead to some situations where they may be discriminated against, pushed aside, or looked down on, or even held in higher regard depending on the culture. It's quite interesting and worth considering from a world building perspective. With that being said, however, let me know what you guys think down beneath in the comment section. Any thoughts, questions, comments, concerns? I'm always open to hearing them. I do have a couple of quick announcements to go over as well. The first and foremost being that due to some technical difficulties, I haven't been able to produce videos really at all lately, and I'm really sorry about that, but the part I got recently came in and it's all set up now, so I'm quite excited to start producing videos again. And of course, I have a lot of lost time to make up for, so be prepared to see a lot of videos being shot out. I really want to get done these races. I've been sitting on the animated videos for a while. I just got to do the voice work for them and, stitch them all together and time them all out and render them. And it is quite a process still, but, it's more complete than it is incomplete at this point. So might as well push a little bit harder and get them all completed. And we started up a new project. It's still experimental to a degree, and there's still some kinks that need to be worked out, but it is essentially an interactive Dungeons & Dragons campaign. So if you are a person who has a D&D itch that needs to be scratched, or maybe you're in between groups right now, or maybe you're new to the game and you'd like to familiarize yourself with the rule set, check that channel out. I'll put it in the pinned comment down beneath. Its name currently is Welcome to the Guild, because that's what the campaign name is, but I may change it based on which direction I decide to take the overall channel. In any case, check it out. It's really interesting. A lot of people seem really fond of it. And yeah, so look at that if you're interested. And of course, if you'd like to get a free one-shot written by yours truly, go over to the Guild Hall and use code WELCOME, and you'll get yours pretty simply. With everything out of the way now, I hope you all have a great day, and as always, happy adventuring.